All right. So again, Dogs defeat the Tigers 10-3. Not an offensive touchdown scored. We got Tyler Piles on the line.
What's
Talking
up, man?
Dogs and the Tigers. Huge win for Georgia. Tyler, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well now, man. Dogs roll offensively. Wasn't great, but, defensively, insane. That pass rush for Georgia played outstanding. That's, as a UGA fan, past couple of years, that's something we've wanted to see. Getting to the QB. We've had a pretty solid pass rush for the past couple of seasons, but we just have not been able to get to the quarterback. And finally, tonight, against a very inexperienced, I would say, offensive line, Georgia dominated, especially in the trenches. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I picked Georgia. When it came right down to it, I just thought that they would. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect 3 points. I didn't expect a shutout, basically, no offensive TDs. But that's why I picked Georgia. Excuse me, because I thought that they would just that their front seven would win the game. I thought that would be the difference. And of course, Smith made the one play on the ball that was a tremendous read on the pass coverage to break for the football and then outrun everyone for the one touchdown in the entire game. No offensive touchdowns on either side. That's crazy.
Especially with how everyone looked at both these teams in the preseason, especially Clemson. Like, I think almost everybody had Clemson as a preseason top 10 offensive team.
Yep.
Georgia up there as well. I understand Georgia was without a couple wide receivers, offensive linemen, and then unfortunately Tate Rutledge, I don't know what happened in the first. I think it was literally the first snap. He gets injured. We didn't get to see him. But Georgia had some injuries on the offense. Clemson had some injuries or COVID-related issues on the defense. I thought both teams would surpass 20 points. I was very shocked at how poor the offenses looked. But the defenses were amazing, especially Georgia's, though. I got to pull up some of these stats. Man, these stats are disgusting.
Well, Tyler, see, if I don't know if I can speak for you on this one, but I've been around a few years, and so I've seen different, phases of football in regards to the passing game and defense versus offense and all that. And everybody's scoring so much these days that, 20 years ago, that was fun to watch a 51-48 game. To me, I'm just speaking. Some people like to see every game 51-48, but a 51-48 game 20 years ago was fun because you didn't see many. And now I'm bored of 51-48 games, so I kind of enjoyed this a little bit.
I mean, as a UGA fan, I'm used to some of these, especially in the past couple of seasons with Kirby Smart. I love Kirby Smart. He is one of the best coaches in the country. But, man, the offenses, especially these past couple of years, have just been below par. And I was expecting both offenses to look really, really good or, better than what they were. But I really, really thought both teams would surpass 20 points. But, man, a 10-3 win in Charlotte against Clemson, this first or second best program for the past 4 or 5 years. It feels great. It really, really feels great.
Yeah, it should. It definitely should. I was saying before you jumped on here that it felt to me like the Clemson offensive struggles, and sure, they've got their issues to clean up on the offensive front. But to me, it felt like that had more to do with Georgia dominance in the front seven. Well, really the entire defense, but the front seven. And that the Georgia struggles on offense, even though Clemson played outstanding defense, the Georgia struggles on offense seemed like it had more to do with them.
I would tend to agree. Unfortunately, you see Ladd's, we call him Ladd, but he was the slot wide receiver. He's the third string wide receiver. Some even had him not even on the depth chart. And then here's another thing. I don't know what Kyrus Jackson what he was really doing. Unfortunately, he was just out there on punt returns. I don't know why he couldn't been out there for receiving.
Yep.
Again, I don't know. That's on the coaching staff. But who else was there? I mean, you just see without George Pickens, Kyrus Jackson, these two key wide receivers, Georgia's offense was very, very conservative. And, it is what it is. Again, I would agree. Georgia was kind of shooting themselves in the foot, especially in the first half. Missing a field goal, running, I would say, a couple miscommunications on the routes back in the first quarter. But that's really it. It's just the play calling was very conservative, in my opinion. A lot of screen passes, when did Georgia air out the ball going deep? I don't even think they did once. They threw one pass over 20 yards, and that's just about it.
Yeah, DJ took some shots. He took a few, not a lot, but he took some shots. But even the incompletions, definitely the completions. Jalen Johnson had a 21-yarder. That was the longest by far. Yeah. That was the longest pass completion. Again, that wasn't a shot downfield. And then Samir White in the running game had a 22-yarder. Other than that, the longest run was 8 yards.
Yeah.
There was just.
And both teams did not respect the pass at all. They were playing very tighter coverage, at least on in short down situations, especially not even past the 30-yard line. Clemson was out here daring Georgia to throw it deep, it seemed, and Georgia just never did it. Georgia was also playing with, I think, a third-string safety. I cannot remember his name. His number's 47. He didn't really do a lot.
Yeah, I saw him out there.
Yeah, yep. He really didn't do a lot. But
he almost had a pick.
Yeah, off of the deflection.
Not because he did anything, but the ball was almost thrown at him.
Yeah.
By DJ because he had a man in his face.
But man, looking at the first quarter though, Georgia completely dominated on time of possession and yards. I mean, Georgia had the ball for I think 12 minutes exactly. They had 71 yards of total offense compared to Clemson, who had in the negatives. And Georgia just could not finish. It was just back in the first quarter, we had 3 false starts. So those are things that have to get fixed, and I think they will. But still, man, what a game.
That's the other thing I was saying before you came on is that at least, Georgia was to get a first down was a grind. It was just a grind to get a first down. But at least Georgia, it seemed like every time they got the ball, they at least weren't going 3 and out. They would get like 30 yards. They'd get like 2 first downs, get maybe 25, 30 yards, then they'd have to punt. For the most part, until late in the game, Clemson got a little bit going, obviously, on that field goal drive that really needed to be a touchdown for them. Clemson was doing nothing forever, and, of course, nothing on the ground. So our DB, our guy is Dan Jackson. He's a sophomore. That's our number 47. That's our man.
Yeah. Yeah. Was he a former walk-on? Can anybody confirm that? I think he was.
I know that. Gainesville, Georgia. Yeah, we will check out the live chat, Tyler and I, and get to your comments and questions. Again, as I set you up for, off the top, Tyler's going to be hosting our Georgia postgame show, mostly going to be on the SEC Network and the Georgia channels. And so join him over there after the Georgia final. But, this one's huge. This is the biggest game of the weekend, and so we wanted to get this thing off running strong here on the main channel. We appreciate we got about 120 folks on the line right now, and we'll chop it up with Georgia. And then when LSU and UCLA go final in about an hour, we'll switch on over to some LSU and UCLA coverage then. So what'd you see out of JT Daniels? How much of this do you think was his fault? How much of it was pass rush and guys just not getting open?
I just think it was play calling. I mean, about 70% of the pass plays were 5 yards or shorter. They were out routes, throwing screen passes. I don't I don't know if Georgia was hiding the offense, so to speak. I know a lot of people don't really like to talk about that, or if Kirby Smart just wanted to play this very, very conservative. But he had that one bad throw, was intercepted. That was just a misread. That was a pretty good play on Spector. He kind of sat in a soft zone and looked off JT Daniels, and then broke out and picked off. I think Justin Robinson was running that route. But other than that, I mean, he didn't get to do what JT Daniels does, and what we've seen in the past is throw the deep ball, or at least air it out to the medium passing tree, which was what I really wanted to see in this game, especially with Clemson's inexperience at defensive back, other than Booth. But it is what it is. Man.
It's not too often that I jump on here after a ball game and about the first 20 comments are about the interior defensive line. That it made that much of a statement to everybody, and it was that much the obvious winning factor of this game was that just collapsing the pocket. The rush from the outside certainly accounted for some of the sacks, and it wasn't just a sack total. It was pretty much every time he dropped back to pass, just hands in the face. But I was about to say, even more so than the edge rushers collapsing on him, it was that push from the middle that was just backing him up, wouldn't let him step and throw. He just, wasn't able to see anything clearly downfield. And the defensive backs, they were making plays on the ball. They were breaking up passes.
Yeah, and interior. I said this in the preseason and the offseason. Jordan Davis is the best player on the field. Number 99, he controlled the game from start to finish. And even Jalen Carter, number 88, he came in when Jordan Davis wasn't inside, and he played really, really well. And throw in Devontae Wyatt, number 95. I mean, this is Georgia for you. They are three deep at every position on the defensive line. I would also say linebacker, not so much defensive backs. But, man, that front seven, let's be real here. I think Georgia's front seven is the best in the country, and I don't even think it's close. I don't even think it's that close. That's my opinion. I don't know about you, but
Tyler, I wouldn't have argued with you before this game to say somebody else had a better one, but I would have said, well, it's arguable, it's debatable. I would have said Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. Those are the obvious three that come to mind. But after watching what I saw, unless Clemson's offensive line is horrible, which I can't believe it's that horrible. They recruit too well for it to be that bad, and they coach them too well for it to be that bad. After what I saw tonight, I would say Georgia's got the best defensive front in the nation.
Yeah, and Clemson's offensive line, past couple of weeks, I've been hearing, and obviously I saw what I saw the past couple of hours, but they just aren't what they were last year or the year before, or really as good as what they were on any national championship team that Dabo Swinney has ever even coached, or even that Orange Bowl team in 2012. They had a solid offensive line. This offensive line, very inexperienced. They were without Trent Williams, guard, I think, or he might be the left tackle. So they had to move around on the offensive line. Once they get him back, I think they'll be a little bit better. But if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm worried about this offensive line because it's not great. Even if Georgia's defensive line is as good as what we're saying, and it is. But still, I'd be worried if I'm a Clemson fan. But still, yeah, Clemson's got a lot to work on, that offensive line, and especially running back too. I was not, even before the game, I wasn't really sold on any of their running backs. But even now, it's just, man. I mean, the best they had was a 10-yard carry all game, and that was on a misdirection. Let me see who carried it. It was on a misdirection. It was Dixon had that misdirection handoff.
Oh, yeah.
Went for 10 yards. That was it. And then they had the 9-yard run late in the game by DJ. But, man, other than that, it was terrible. It was horrific. 23 carries, 2 yards rushing. 2 yards rushing. You're never going to beat any team, especially as good as Georgia, 2 yards rushing. Wow.
Tyler, I don't know if you're an NFL guy, but I do like how they keep the stats when it comes to rushing and passing. So it's kind of misleading. Yeah, they couldn't run the ball. There's no doubt about that. Clemson couldn't run the ball, but they throw the sacks into the rushing yardage, and so you can't really tell. So basically, I got to think if DJ went 14 for negative 22, they ran for about 20 yards.
Yeah, about. I would say that.
It's pretty awful. 20 or 25 yards on 10 or 12 carries.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There was just nothing there. Will Shipley, 4 carries for 7 yards. He's one of their prized recruits.
Yeah, former 5-star.
Yep.
He was an all-purpose back. He didn't even have he did have 1 catch. I think it was on like that little pitch out.
Yeah, 11 yards. Yeah, they got one to him. He slipped a tackle.
Justin Ross, 4 catches, 26 yards. I don't know how many targets he had. I would think he had, 8 or 9 targets?
Yeah.
Nagata had a great game, though. Somebody had to step up for Clemson, though.
They've been waiting for that for a long time.
But Justin Ross, 4 catches, 26 yards. I'm going to take a guess and said he had 8 or 9 targets. Can't do any better than that against a borderline, if not an elite wide receiver.
Now the stat line doesn't look impressive, but let's give some love to Georgia's leading receiver here, Brock Bowers, a freshman, tight end. A lot of attention given to the Georgia tight end position over the offseason, but it had more to do with Eric Gilbert, of course, coming in, and even Darnell Washington looking for a big second season, and he was banged up. Brock Bowers, I know, was a top 5 to 10 tight end in the nation coming in, so he's no slouch, but he didn't pick up a whole lot of yardage, but a lot of those plays, man, he was slipping tackles. He was fighting for every yard he could get.
And he was breaking tackles from one of the best tacklers in the country, James Stowski. And that was very surprising with how well. Oh, sorry about that. I was the cover girl. But that was very surprising with how well he was able to break some of these tackles against really, really good linebackers and defenders. I mean, we ran 3 of his catches were tight end screens. So he played really, really well, and he blocked really, really well, especially in the second half.
JG is saying, no way Clemson wins out. Team is a mess. Well, I think we tend to go a little overboard on the week 1 performances, and they did face what might be the best defense in the country. So, yeah, they have issues. They have issues because their goal is to win a national championship. If they just want to go 9-3 and be a good team, then they don't have many issues. But yeah, they need to play elite football. So yeah, they do have issues. For them, they have issues, no doubt. But they're not a mess.
Yeah, and Clemson's only going to get better. And they played really, really well defensively. Clemson and Georgia are both top 3 defenses, so you got to give them a little bit of a break with their offense. Like I said, we already covered this. Work on that offensive line, and then running backs. They'll have running backs step up, especially when they play. I don't even know who they play next week. I think they play an FCS team or a MAC team, something like that. I know they play out of conference.
They've got UAB.
Oh,
coming up.
No, that's Georgia.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, yeah. Okay.
And Georgia cannot sleep on UAB because UAB has a solid defense too.
Yeah.
Just being real.
Yeah, Clemson's got South Carolina State coming up.
Okay, yeah. And that game is going to be, a huge learning curve for Clemson. They're going to go out there and more than likely dominate. They just are. I expect them to surpass 150 yards rushing. Maybe they'll fix some things on that offensive line, find a true number 1 running back. Is it going to be Dixon, Shipley, even Pace? I don't know. I'm really surprised Dixon only had 1 carry in this game, because I thought he was going to be the true number 1 running back. But then again, obviously Georgia's defense suffocated that inside and made it impossible to run.
All right, Tyler. just to kind of give a summary of where Georgia stands right now versus where they need to get to be the team that they want to be. Just kind of brush through the offense and the defense. Well, I would think little criticism for the defense, I would think, but obviously a lot of it has to do with health. They need their receivers back. They could use a couple DBs back, would be nice, and they would be better. But certainly the defense was devastating. But start with the passing game and just take us through kind of a summary of the team and where you think they stand after what you saw tonight.
Well, offensively, we got to get back these wide receivers. I need to see Karis Jackson on the field. Hopefully, Blaylock is able to play. I think he's able to play next week or maybe the week after. Darnell Washington, that's tight end number 1, although Brock Bowers did an amazing job, in my opinion, especially in the block game. He had obviously 6 catches, 43 yards. But, again, get back George Pickens more than likely later in the year. And then with the passing offense, be less conservative. And I think Georgia will down the stretch, but I really, really, really believe Georgia was just playing way too conservative because of the losses that they had at the wide receiver. Offensive line, for the most part, played solid, if we're being real. Had a couple issues in the first half of false starts. That's going to happen. Miscommunication on that 1 sack. And then a couple other small things with that offensive line. I thought they played solid and fine, especially against one of the best defensive lines that will play all year. Defensively, cornerback number 2, that needs to step up. Amir Speed, Keely Ringo, I'm going to be real, especially in the second half, did not play up to par. Had a lot of grabbing the jerseys, didn't turn around. But, again, Speed, I know he's a senior, inexperienced. He really hasn't had big time in-game experience. And then Keely Ringo, redshirt freshman. But Jalen Kimber will be back, I believe, next week or the week after. He was expected to be cornerback number 2. And then Tyke Smith at safety, star, will be back coming. So get all these guys back. I think Georgia is going to be at least a top 4 team. That's my takeaway.
I've always been a big fan of Lewis Cine. He can lay the wood. He comes to play, like how he plays.
And you know what? Back in the fourth quarter, it was that big. I think it was 3rd and 5. Number 88 is Galloway for the tight. Yeah, it's Galloway, the tight end for Clemson. He's coming around. Lewis Cine, knowing Lewis Cine back to last year, he's going down and he's going to go shoulder to shoulder. Today, against Galloway, he knocks that ball away, which was incredible to see, and that's a huge boost in his game if he can get better at coverage, and he looked pretty good so far today.
Yeah, he did. It was one of those perfectly timed. It was like a 3rd and 6, little slant, boom. And, perfectly timed play to get them off the field.
Yeah.
There was an interesting sequence where Georgia was punting. The Clemson punt returner was hit going out of bounds. The first hit seemed to be totally clean. Did get hit the second time in the paint. And then the officials ruled, number 1, they didn't even look at that, which I'm not big on. I think the game's being over officiated from a physical standpoint these days, number 1. But I did think that was a late hit. But at the same time, they said that the ball was tipped because the Georgia punter was run into. The ball was missed by a yard.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close to being tipped.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I really did. When I watched that live, I'm like, oh, great, that's a late hit. And then when you watch it in slow motion, that was a late hit. So that was a missed call. And then I guess they can review if the ball gets tipped, and then you can call a penalty. I've never seen that before, but obviously it happened today. So that worked out in Georgia's favor. It got Georgia, 11 yards, or Clemson 11 yards less. So that was big. But then they called that pass interference on Speed play after, which I didn't really think was PI. but it is what it is.
So we got Tyler Piles right here. He's going to join us after every Georgia game. So he's going to be hosting our Georgia coverage post game, which starts with the big. Now I lost who they played. UAB coming up next week. UAB, the Blazers, who pitched a shutout against Jacksonville State this week. So you guys know what the deal is. You know, we got post-game coverage going all over the place. So you'll just have to check the listings as I figure out where we need to place these between the SEC, the Georgia channels, and right here on the main channel. But we're glad to have Tyler here to talk dogs with all of you. But this being the Clemson game and being the biggest game of the weekend, then we wanted to have Tyler on here to introduce him to all of you and talk up the dogs and the Tigers here after the surprising 10-3 game. I thought the defenses were going to rule, but in this day and age, I thought that meant like 24-20. But 10-3, no offensive touchdowns. I would have never guessed that. It would have never crossed my mind that nobody was going to score a touchdown in this game. Tyler,
I agree.
As you look at, you kind of brush through this. As you look at the schedule, it sounds like you're fairly high on Kentucky in terms of the Georgia schedule. I'm picking them to go 9-3. I actually think they're better than Florida. We'll see. Gators won tonight, big. So is it basically Florida and Kentucky, the two teams, maybe Auburn?
Again, I would say Kentucky is definitely a game in which Georgia could slip up. Maybe not. Obviously, I don't think they're going to lose. But I've said in the offseason, I think this is the game in which Georgia kind of has like a letdown. You know, it's before Florida. I get that, you know, Georgia does get a bye. But I really, really thought Kentucky is going to be really, really good this year. And after watching them today throw the football around, I was very, very impressed with that passing offense. So, yeah, I actually think Kentucky might be a little bit better than Florida. And then Auburn looked good against one of the worst FBS teams, but still, they looked really, really good. Bo Nix looked sharp. So, and you still got Missouri after Florida. So we'll see. Those are the 4 games right now, and they're all in 5 weeks. 4 games in 5 weeks against really, really solid SEC teams.